Most men don't realize it, but they were trained to fear being alone. From a young age, they're told that if they don't find a woman, something is wrong with them. That belief follows them into adulthood. It shapes their choices, their standards, and the life they settle for. And by the time they question it, years are already gone. Section 1. The lie men were sold about happiness. Every man hears the same promise growing up. Find the right woman, build a relationship, and everything will fall into place. Peace, motivation, meaning. That's the story. But look around. Really look. Men have never had more access to dating, communication, and choice. Yet anxiety is higher, focus is lower, and quiet dissatisfaction is everywhere. Something doesn't add up. The problem isn't that men failed to follow the script. The problem is that the script was flawed from the beginning. From an early age, men are taught that being alone is a problem to solve. That if you're single too long, something must be wrong with you. Immature, incomplete, behind in life. So men rush, they attach, they settle. Not because they're ready, but because they're afraid of falling behind socially. Happiness, they're told, comes from being chosen. And that belief quietly reshapes a man's behavior. Instead of asking, what kind of life do I want? He asks, what do I need to become to be accepted? That's where the damage starts. When happiness is outsourced, freedom disappears. When your sense of worth depends on another person's approval, your decisions stop being yours. You begin filtering your choices through expectations. What's attractive, what's acceptable, what keeps the peace. And slowly, without noticing, your life becomes reactive. This isn't accidental. A distracted man is easy to manage. A man chasing validation doesn't challenge systems. He doesn't question long-term costs. He's too busy trying to prove himself to a partner, to society, to an image of success that was handed to him without consent. The lie wasn't that relationships can be meaningful. The lie was that they are necessary for a man to be complete. Because the moment a man believes he needs someone else to feel whole, he becomes negotiable. His time, his boundaries, his ambition, all adjustable in exchange for reassurance. Most men don't notice when this happens. There's no dramatic collapse, just small compromises, skipped workouts, delayed goals, softened standards. One day becomes 5 years, then 10, and the quiet thought creeps in. How did I get here? Society rarely asks that question on behalf of men. It assumes endurance equals strength, that sacrifice equals maturity, that pressure is normal. So when men feel trapped, exhausted, or disconnected from themselves, they're told to try harder, communicate better, give more, be more. No one asks whether the original promise was honest, because here's the truth. Most men are never told. Happiness doesn't come from attachment. It comes from alignment. Alignment between how you live and who you actually are. Being single isn't the absence of love. It's the absence of noise. It's space. Space to hear your own thoughts again. Space to build something without interruption. Space to discover whether your desires are real or inherited. The fear of being alone keeps many men from ever finding out who they could have been. And that fear is exactly why learning to stand alone changes everything. Section 2. What men actually lose inside relationships. Most men don't lose themselves all at once. It doesn't happen through a single argument or a dramatic betrayal. It happens quietly, gradually, almost politely. At first, everything feels manageable. You're happy to compromise, happy to adjust. That's what you're supposed to do, right? Relationships are about give and take. So you give a little time here, a little energy there. You tell yourself it's normal, and in the beginning it is. But over time the balance shifts. Your schedule starts bending around someone else's emotions. Your decisions get delayed, second-guessed, softened. You think less in terms of what matters to me, and more in terms of what will cause friction. This is where most men don't realize the cost, because the biggest thing men lose in relationships isn't money or freedom, it's mental space. Your mind is no longer fully yours. Part of it is always occupied, anticipating moods, managing expectations, replaying conversations, trying to stay ahead of problems that never fully disappear. Even during quiet moments, there's background noise. That noise drains focus that could have gone into your body, your craft, your long-term vision. Instead, it gets spent on emotional maintenance, something that never produces tangible results, only temporary relief. Then there's identity. Men are often told that commitment makes them mature, responsible, grounded, but responsibility without self-direction slowly turns into self-suppression. You start trimming parts of yourself that don't fit. Your edges soften, your standards blur, not because someone demanded it outright, but because resistance feels exhausting. You stop pushing where you once pushed hard, and the most dangerous loss, peace. Many relationships don't collapse because of hatred or conflict. They decay because of constant low-level tension, the feeling that you're never fully off duty, that you're always expected to explain, justify, reassure, or adapt. That kind of pressure doesn't break men loudly. It wears them down silently. Sleep gets lighter, training gets inconsistent, motivation fades, not because the man is weak, but because his energy is constantly being siphoned off in small, invisible amounts. And here's the part society avoids saying out loud. Men are rarely allowed to acknowledge this loss. If a man admits he feels drained, he's told to be more emotionally available. If he says he needs space, he's labeled distant. If he prioritizes his goals, he's called selfish. So he learns to stay quiet, to carry it, to normalize discomfort, until numbness feels like stability. This isn't an attack on relationships. It's an honest accounting of their cost. For some men, the trade is worth it. For many others, it's made without awareness. They don't choose sacrifice, they slide into it, guided by expectation, not intention. Being single interrupts that slide. It gives a man back uninterrupted time, unfiltered decisions, a nervous system that can finally relax. He stops performing, stops negotiating his existence, stops apologizing for needing focus. And in that stillness, something returns, clarity, not about love, but about himself. Because once a man experiences what it feels like to live without constant emotional taxation, he starts asking a different question. Not, how do I keep this? But why did I ever give it up so easily? And that question changes the direction of his life. Section 3. The psychological power of being alone. Most men say they want peace. Very few are willing to sit still long enough to experience it. Because the first thing solitude does is expose what you've been avoiding. The noise disappears, the distractions fade, and suddenly there's nothing to hide behind. No conversations to manage, no expectations to meet, just you and your thoughts. That's why so many men fear being alone. Not because solitude is empty, but because it's honest. When a man steps out of relationships and stops chasing attention, his mind goes through withdrawal. He reaches for his phone, he looks for validation, he feels restless. That discomfort isn't loneliness, it's dependency breaking down. And this phase matters, because once a man stops numbing himself with constant connection, something important happens. His nervous system recalibrates. He's no longer reacting to emotional signals outside himself. He starts responding to his own internal signals again. Fatigue, ambition, curiosity, frustration. This is psychological sovereignty. A man who spends time alone learns how his mind actually works. He notices which thoughts are his and which were planted by fear, comparison, or social pressure. He stops outsourcing emotional regulation. If he feels bored, he doesn't panic. If he feels restless, he doesn't escape. He sits with it. And sitting with discomfort builds strength faster than comfort ever could. Solitude forces clarity. You begin to see how much of your previous behavior was driven by the need to be seen, wanted, or approved of. Without an audience, the performance ends. What's left is identity, raw and unfinished. That's where growth starts. A man alone doesn't need to explain his goals. He doesn't need to justify why he's working late, training harder, or thinking long term. His mind becomes quieter, sharper. Decisions feel cleaner because they aren't filtered through someone else's emotional response. Over time, the silence stops feeling heavy. It becomes stabilizing. You start trusting yourself again. This is where emotional discipline is built, not by suppressing feelings, but by learning not to be controlled by them. A man who can sit alone on a Friday night without feeling anxious or incomplete has already won a psychological battle most people never fight. Because once you're comfortable alone, manipulation loses its power. Fear of abandonment disappears. Guilt loses its grip. The pressure to rush into something just to avoid silence fades. You realize you don't need immediate comfort, you need long-term alignment. That realization changes how you move through the world. You become less reactive, less needy, less impressed by surface-level attention. You listen more, you observe more, you choose more carefully. Solitude doesn't make a man cold, it makes him selective. And that selectiveness isn't arrogance, it's self-respect earned through experience. When you've learned to generate peace internally, you stop trading it cheaply. You don't give access to your time, energy, or emotions without intention. This is why solitude is powerful, not because it isolates you from life, but because it reconnects you to yourself. It turns you inward long enough to rebuild a stable center. And once that center is solid, everything else becomes optional. Connection becomes a choice, not a need. And a man who operates from choice is no longer easy to control, rush, or pressure. He's anchored, calm, grounded. That's the psychological advantage of being alone. Not loneliness, freedom. Section 4. Money, focus, and leverage. When men talk about freedom, they usually mean time or money. But what they rarely realize is that focus is the real currency. And focus is fragile. It breaks easily under emotional pressure, constant negotiation, and unspoken expectations. This is why many men work hard but never move forward. Their energy is split, their attention is fragmented, their decisions are reactive instead of strategic. Being single fixes that, not magically, practically. When a man lives alone, his financial life becomes clean. There's no emotional spending, no pressure to upgrade lifestyles for appearances, no guilt-driven generosity. Every dollar has a purpose, and that purpose is usually tied to long-term stability, not short-term approval. This is leverage. A single man knows exactly what he earns, what he keeps, and what he's building toward. He doesn't need to justify his discipline or explain his priorities. He can invest aggressively in himself. Skills, health, education, businesses, without negotiation. That kind of financial clarity compounds, but the real advantage isn't just money, it's decision speed. A man without emotional chaos can think clearly. He can work late without tension. He can take risks without drama. He can delay gratification without resentment. His mind isn't split between ambition and reassurance, and that makes him dangerous in the best way. Because most systems are built assuming men will be distracted, that they'll trade future power for present comfort, that they'll sacrifice leverage for validation. A man who refuses that trade becomes unpredictable. He's not desperate for income because his expenses are controlled. He's not afraid of downtime because his identity isn't tied to constant approval. He's not rushed into commitments because he understands the cost of bad ones. That's power. Relationships often require men to soften their ambition to preserve harmony, not intentionally, but structurally. Big goals create imbalance. Long hours create tension. Focus creates distance. So men learn to shrink their vision just enough to keep things calm. Single men don't have to do that. They can build without apology. This doesn't mean they don't care about others. It means they understand trade-offs, and they refuse to make permanent sacrifices for temporary comfort. Over time, this creates a different kind of confidence. Quiet, stable, grounded. A man who knows he can support himself, regulate himself, and move independently doesn't need to prove anything. He doesn't flex. He doesn't chase. He doesn't over-explain. He just moves, and people feel that. Respect grows naturally when a man isn't leaking energy, when his life looks intentional instead of negotiated, when his progress is steady instead of emotional. This is why being single often accelerates men financially, not because relationships are evil, but because clarity multiplies effort. One focused man will outpace 10 distracted ones. When your time is yours, your money follows. When your mind is calm, your strategy sharpens. When your life isn't built around emotional management, leverage returns. That's the truth most men learn too late. Freedom isn't reckless spending or endless pleasure. Freedom is owning your direction, and being single done intentionally makes that ownership possible. Section 5. Identity, masculinity, and self-respect. A man's identity is shaped by what he tolerates, not what he says he values, not what he posts, but what he consistently allows into his life. For many men, relationships slowly redefine that identity in ways they never consciously chose. Over time, being agreeable replaces being grounded. Keeping the peace replaces telling the truth. Approval replaces self-trust. And this is where masculinity quietly erodes, not through weakness, but through adaptation. Men adapt to survive emotionally. They soften their opinions. They delay their instincts. They learn when to speak and when to stay silent. At first, it feels mature, responsible, but eventually something feels off. They don't recognize themselves anymore. Self-respect doesn't disappear overnight. It fades through repetition, through small moments where a man knows what he wants but doesn't say it, where he feels resistance but ignores it, where he chooses comfort over alignment. Being single interrupts that pattern. When a man lives alone, there's no audience shaping his behavior, no one to impress, no one to manage. His actions either align with his values or they don't, and there's no one else to blame. That's uncomfortable at first, but it's honest. This is where real masculinity is rebuilt. Not the loud kind, not dominance, but self-trust. The ability to make decisions and stand by them. The confidence to walk away without drama. The discipline to say no without explanation. A man who respects himself doesn't need constant reassurance. He doesn't negotiate his boundaries for approval. He understands that being liked is optional. Being aligned is not. Solitude teaches this lesson quickly. You learn what you actually enjoy, how you actually think, what standards matter when no one is watching. You stop performing masculinity and start living it. And something shifts. Your posture changes. Your tone changes. Your tolerance changes. You stop chasing situations that drain you. You stop arguing with people who don't hear you. You stop explaining your goals to those who don't share your vision. This isn't bitterness. It's filtration. Self-respect is built when a man knows he'll walk away from anything that costs him his peace. That knowledge creates internal stability. You don't threaten, you don't demand, you don't cling, you simply choose. This is why men who've spent time single often move differently in relationships later. They're calmer, slower to attach, harder to manipulate. Not because they don't care, but because they care about themselves first. Masculinity, at its core, is responsibility for one's inner world, not outsourcing meaning, not expecting someone else to complete you, not confusing attention with value. A man who has learned to stand alone doesn't fear rejection. He's already survived silence. He doesn't fear being misunderstood. He's learned to trust his own judgment. That kind of man isn't loud. He's solid, and that solidity doesn't come from being chosen. It comes from choosing himself, consistently, quietly, without apology. That's what being single restores. Not ego, not resentment, self-respect. Section 6. Being single is not the end goal, it's the advantage. Being single was never meant to be a permanent destination, and that's where many people misunderstand the message. This isn't about isolation, bitterness, or rejecting connection. It's about timing, leverage, and choice. Being single done intentionally is not running away from life. It's stepping back far enough to see it clearly. Most men don't fail in relationships because they're incapable of love. They fail because they enter relationships without a stable foundation. They're still searching for identity, still chasing validation, still unsure of their direction. And when you bring confusion into commitment, pressure multiplies it. Singlehood, when used correctly, solves this. It gives a man the time to build himself before binding himself, to sharpen his standards before sharing his space, to understand his values before negotiating them. This is the part no one explains. When a man is comfortable being alone, relationships stop being a rescue mission. They stop being a source of identity. They stop being a way to escape discomfort. Instead, they become optional, and that changes everything. Because what's optional can be chosen carefully. A man who doesn't fear solitude doesn't rush intimacy. He observes, he listens, he takes his time. He's not impressed by attention alone. He looks for consistency, alignment, and peace. And if those things aren't present, he walks, not angrily, not dramatically, calmly. That's the advantage. Being single trains a man to value his time, protect his energy, and respect his direction. It removes desperation from his decisions, and desperation is what ruins most relationships before they even begin. This phase also reveals something important. Not every connection deserves access. Not every attraction deserves investment. Not every opportunity is worth the cost. Most men learn this too late, after years of emotional exhaustion or financial damage. Singlehood gives you the chance to learn it early, without consequence. And when a man eventually chooses partnership from that place, it's different. He's not looking to be completed. He's not looking to be saved. He's not looking for permission to live. He's looking for compatibility. That's a higher standard. It means he can love deeply without losing himself, commit without self-betrayal, build without resentment, because his life already has structure, his peace already has roots, and if that partnership ends, he doesn't collapse because nothing essential was outsourced. This is the truth most men never hear. The goal isn't to stay single forever. The goal is to become a man who can stay single without fear. Once you reach that point, everything changes. Love becomes an addition, not a requirement. Connection becomes a choice, not a necessity. Commitment becomes deliberate, not reactive. So when people ask why it's better to be single, the answer isn't because relationships are bad. The answer is simpler. Because being single teaches you who you are when no one is watching. Because it builds strength without applause. Because it gives you leverage in a world that profits from distracted men. And once you've experienced that level of clarity, you never give it up cheaply. Not for comfort, not for pressure, not for fear. You choose or you walk. That's not loneliness, that's freedom, fully earned. If this made sense to you, don't rush to react. Sit with it. Men who think deeply don't need noise. They need clarity. If you want more conversations like this, quiet, honest, and grounded, stay here. This channel isn't about chasing approval. It's about building a life that doesn't require it.